So now that I have the time, why not make another video about something that I wanted to share? And this is with you, I want to share the experience that I had or have with extrasensory perception and how I know I trained it, and so probably how you can train it as well. So we'll quickly go over what extrasensory perception is, then my experience, how you can train it, and then how you could possibly do it. So extrasensory means that you don't use hearing, seeing, touch, taste, and smell in order to perceive something. And perceive means to become aware of, conscious of something. So you become aware or conscious of something not through these typical 5 physical senses, I would say. That's what extrasensory perception means. So my experience, try to keep it short. My wife has this box of homeopathy, and I don't relate to homeopathy. I'm open to that it possibly works, but don't have strong motivation to try it or anything. I wouldn't seek it out myself if I would experience some X or illness. So anyway, my wife has this box with 40 of these vials, or approximately, I don't know, for homeopathy. And my daughter was suffering from some kind of mood and pain in her abdomen that returned for like a few days in a row. And my wife asked me, "Can you try your meditation focus on seeking out a vial that might help her?" I was like, my mind was thinking, yeah, I could try it, and never did. And how would you ever trust something that I say? How would you verify my experience? I mean, you don't just take random of these vials and put them in your mouth and swallow them, right? If homeopathy is doing something, then you want to know that you're taking the right stuff. So how would you even trust that? But at that moment, I felt an excited motivation, an honest motivation, a light feeling on, yes, try it. And I was like, this is not coming from my own mind, because my own mind is doubting it. But still I have this motivation. All right, I'll give it a try. So I gave it a try, and I took these vials one by one, closed my eyes, I focused on the vial and asked the question, how this would affect my daughter. And the first thing that came to me, I just said to my wife, and it was like 6 or 7 vials in a row. And between one of them, it was like matching what my daughter experienced. So my wife decided to take that vial. I said, all right, your responsibility. I don't know what I'm saying. I said that after every time that I got something, I told her, and I said, I don't know what I'm saying. And as an example, what I experienced was like a bloated up stomach, a bloated stomach. Next vial, I feel hot and a headache. Another vial, I feel cramps in my neck, and I get a face that is looking grumpy. So these things came to me, and I just said them, and I told my wife, I have no clue what I'm doing. Let me also state that I have no knowledge of homeopathy whatsoever. I didn't know what vials were in the box. I never read about it in any book, but my wife has knowledge of homeopathy, and she didn't acknowledge it right at that time. But after I was done, like going through over a couple of these files, she said, "Yeah, you describe characteristics of each vial with accuracy. The theme is correct." I was like, "Oh wow, cool. Let me see." And I said, "Cover the title, because I don't want to get any association with names or whatever. Cover the title." And I read, yes, this is indeed in line with what I just experienced and expressed in words to you. All right, another time that I experienced this was when my wife asked, "Can you seek out a vial for me? I'm not feeling so well in certain respects. Can you do the same for me?" And it was like a week later or something. And I was like tired after work. I actually wanted to play a video game or something, and I was like, yeah, of course, I want to try this for you. So not with much motivation, but motivation for love for my wife. I took this box and I looked at, wow, 40 files. I need to concentrate on 40 of these things and listen to perceive something, write it down, and try to make sense of what I get. I wasn't really that motivated, but still I did it. And I put them in random order because I didn't want to have the association of previous time that possibly my subconscious mind could have. And I was like, yeah, my wife knows these things, these etiquettes and what it means. And there's an index on the box as well, so she can reorder them. And if she wants this from me, yeah, then this is just how then this is something that she needs to accept, that I just put them in random order now and able to do this in order to be able to do this. So I took a file, put my focus on the file, and then I put my focus on my wife, while holding also focus on the file, holding it in, I would say, working memory. And I asked the question, what does this file mean to me, to my wife? And I got something, and I don't argue with it. I have learned to not argue with what comes to me. So I don't argue with it, even though I find it strange or odd or for my intellectual mind doesn't make sense. I've learned not to argue with it, and I just noted it down. So it was kind of the same as with my daughter. And a specific file I would like to mention in this video is that with one file, I perceived someone who had like a curved back, like this, and severe pain at a very particular point in the back. So I noted that down. And I went down to my wife. I wasn't motivated to go over all these 40 files. I only did like 7. And I told her, like, this file, that really stood out. Not that it's going to help you now, but when I asked the question what it means for you, I got this curved back and a really sore spot in the center of the spine. And my wife said, yeah, 10 years ago, I fell off a horse. One of my spines cracked. I went to some medical practitioner who put this sounding fork. I don't know if that's the correct term in English, but it has this shape. Then it comes down to one thing. And so they ping, they slam it onto something and make sound and put it on her vertebrae. And she said it really hurt it, and that was like the proof that there was a crack in my vertebrae. And she said, I took this homeopathy file because it's known to regenerate bone tissue or help to regenerate it or something along those lines. Bone tissue. It was good for bone tissue. I was like, yeah, that's exactly in line with my experience. I didn't know that happened to you because like 10 years ago, I haven't met her yet. I didn't know her yet. I didn't know that happened. And she confirmed that she never told me that ever happened. So I was like, this couldn't be somewhere in my subconscious mind. And then even I didn't see these etiquettes on this box, etc., etc. And I was like really flabbergasted that I got such precise information. I was really surprised. I read about that those things would be possible, but it was never my experience. And then within the same week, it was my experience with my daughter, which I could have said that was like coincidental or it's just chance or I got lucky, but then again, a week later I tried the same thing and I get different information. I again get these impressions. It works exactly the same way. It's reproducible. And for me, it's accurate enough to say it's not chance. I was like really flabbergasted. So that was my experience. Let's go over to how to train it. The fun thing is, like 3 weeks in advance, I was doing a specific meditation. And that meditation, with hindsight, felt exactly the same as when I requested information for these files. Alright, so I listed 2 meditation exercises here. Let's first go over the most important one, I wouldn't say, but the one that's to the point. The meditation exercise for training your extrasensory perception. If you've seen any of my other videos, You might have guessed that I'm really fond of the switching meditation technique because it helps me in a lot of ways. So the switching meditation technique is you take two things that you put your focus on. I call them here focal point A and B. So one thing I focus on is the bodily sensations of my body, the sensations of my body. It's just how I am right now, I would say. It contains physical sensations, it contains emotions. All right, these sensations. And the other focal point is I request in my mind anything that I can remember from touch. Yes, from touch mostly, not any other experience, but tactile. It's called tactile, right? When I touch something. So for instance, how does the surface of my phone feel? It has a certain feel. It's different than from how does my keyboard feel? This has a different structure. So when I go there with my mind, I request that I get an experience. You might say, that's just your imagination. I don't really care what it is. I get some experience. Let's go back a slide. Let's go back a slide to extrasensory. And that's extrasensory perception is without the use of hearing, seeing, touch, taste, and smell, you become conscious of something. So that actually fits, right? I wasn't even aware of that before I made this video. But when this slide, focal point B of the meditation extrasensory perception, how does this feel or how does that feel? And I pick other things and with curiosity, and I really pay attention to the rise of this sensation. So how does the texture of this wall behind me feel? It's different from my phone, it's different from my keyboard, it's different from my desk, and you have all these different kind of tactile sensations. And that's just what I was doing for like 3 weeks or so. I was meditating like half an hour a day, and I was doing this, switching between my bodily sensations and how does this feel, switching to my bodily sensation, how does that feel, switching to my bodily sensation, how does that feel, and pay attention to the rise of it. And every time I switched, I told myself, this is the sensation of my body, and this is the tactile sensation that my mind is producing, so that I know that it's not real. It's, well, real in the sense of that it comes through my physical senses that fall outside of extrasensory, so sensory perception, I would say. All right, so this meditation exercise. I listed the second here on the slide because I think this is also really important. You need to be able to discern thinking that gives you some experience. So you can have experience that comes from thinking, from your intellectual mind, and you can have experience from listening. So for the listening, I took the bodily sensations part because that's just listening to what the body is producing for experience sensations. And the other thing is like really thinking. 5 + 2, 7. Yeah, it's not a difficult summation, but you get the point. Thinking. Think of math, think of science, think of work, how you're going to do something. Thinking. And thinking has a particular experience as well. It's a particular part of your brain, if you will, that functions for thinking, that has its function for thinking. So it's important to know the distinction between when am I thinking, when is my intellectual mind thinking, when it is reasoning, and when am I open to just perceiving sensations that are not produced by thinking. All right? So that's also an important thing. So if you combine these two, then we get to how can you do this extrasensory perception. And in this example, continuing on the story that I had with these homeopathy files, my daughter and my wife, I just took those as an example. You focus on the subject, and if you want, you involve other subject as well, as long as you hold them all in working memory, so you didn't forget about one. It's not like, all right, first give me an example. Homeopathy file, focus, and my wife, focus, connected to what does it mean for my wife. If I would be forgetting what homeopathy file I was talking about, and I was only thinking for this, I'm asking this for my wife, I don't get an answer. I noticed that a couple of times. So I go back, refocus on this homeopathy file, refocus on my wife, and the connection, what does it mean for her? And then I'm open to any perception. So I'm not thinking. That's why it's important, the second meditation, to know the distinction between thinking And I call it listening, but it's not listening with the ears. It's just being open to whatever comes in, whatever impression you have. Maybe you hear a sound, someone telling you something. Maybe you have an image. Maybe you feel something. Anything. Any sensation, doesn't really matter. Any experience, as long as it's not thinking. So focus on these subjects. Ask the question that you want to know, and then be open. Listen. Don't think. And especially don't argue with it. Don't say this is completely irrational, doesn't make sense. That's the intellectual mind. That's analyzing. You don't need that. You need to be open. You need to think. And if you try this, it might work for you. If you try it and it doesn't, then try this meditation exercise. Both. I tried it for a couple of weeks. Maybe for you it takes less, maybe for you it takes longer. But I'm definitely sure that if you train this, like for several weeks, you will start to experience things that you didn't experience before, which you might have thought of as impossible, but turn out to be correct. So your experience of something that you thought to be impossible turns out to be correct, and you couldn't have known that with the traditional 5 senses, and therefore, we just give it a name, right? Extrasensory perception. Well, that's it for this video. I hope I made myself clear. Please ask any questions if you feel like it, or leave me a comment, or tell me about your experience and how you do it. For instance, I'm very curious to learn that as well. Thanks for watching. Have a great time. Bye.